afternoon again, everyone. My name is Ife Olatunji David. I work with TaRL Africa as the Associate Manager, Program and Partnership Support. And I am honored to be hosting the webinar today for TaRL Africa. We would have an interesting session today talking about how TaRL is changing the way children are learning in Nigeria. And before we start, just know that you are up for a good time today and enlightening time today. And we also look forward to learning and answering a lot of questions from all our participants today. So while we're waiting for more people to join, like I said earlier, I would be presenting a Menti link. I would also run us through how to use Menti so that in case people that are new to it can learn how to use it. So please just go to the Menti link, which is www.menti, that is MENTI.com. And then once you're there, you can type done in the chat. And then there's a code that is typed here, 57563533. Join in, and then once you're done, you can just type done. And then there's a question there that's just basically just introduction. That's a way of introduction. So you can tell us where are you joining us from while we're waiting for others to join. We have 89 people on the call. Thank you again for joining. So this is what you should see once you are done with that. And I would also be able to see the people that have joined the Menti through a number. So we have people we have Dorothy Stephanie. She didn't write where she's from, but thank you, Dorothy. Someone's from Borno, Bauchi State, Washington, Bernie Kebbi, India, Kenya, Kaduna, Borno, Kano, Calabar, Cross River State, Nairobi, Kenya, South Africa, Durban. Oh, that's amazing. Just keep letting us know where you're joining us from. It's one thing to know who I'm speaking with and what part of the world they're in. I'm seeing Zimbabwe, Zambia, so many places, United States, and it's amazing. It's beautiful to see everyone interested in how children are learning in Nigeria. And it's not just a Nigerian thing. This is an African thing, because TaRL Africa is not just in Nigeria. It's in several countries in Africa. And children are learning in several, we're improving learning outcomes in several countries in Nigeria. And this is amazing, learning that people are coming from different parts of the world. Thank you again for indulging us. So I will stop sharing at the moment and welcome all of us. We have a lot of people on the call today, 96 people on the call today. Thank you for joining this conversation. So to welcome us all to this amazing conversation we're about to have about how children are learning, I would like to welcome the country director of TaRL Africa in Nigeria, Hafsatu Amzat, to give us a welcome address. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you so much, Ife. This is so exciting. I'm really happy to see the diverse participants for this that have joined us. So first, I would like to say thank you for indulging us and joining us to hear about how children are learning. One of the reasons why we set up this webinar is just to share a little bit about what we've been doing in Nigeria, the strides we've made to improve learning outcomes for children, and also to celebrate the children's International Children's Day. So we're really excited to see people from all over the globe join us. I won't take too much of your time. I just want to say thank you for joining us. It is going to be a very interesting session. I hope you are able to stay till the end. Yes, and we hope you would be able to help us achieve our mission of ensuring every child acquires foundational skills. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for your passion in ensuring that all children in Nigeria are getting foundational learning skills. Thank you so much, Ma. So over the next hour, 1 hour and a half, we would be exploring the innovation, data, and government leadership in making foundational learning more effective and equitable. And in doing that, we would be speaking, like I mentioned earlier, government partners. We'll be speaking with implementation partners and several other members of TaRL Africa team to discuss how we've been achieving this in Nigeria since 2018. Quick housekeeping rules. I can see a hand up, so I will just quickly tell her that please, any questions we have, there will be a session at the end where we can speak. But for now, any questions we have, let's post it on the Zoom, on the Q&A session. If you go up, there should be, depends on how your, okay, just down, you'll see participants, chat, raise hands, share, and then you see Q&A. Once you click Q&A, you will see a place for questions. So please put all your questions there and we will get to them shortly, just so that we are not, sorry, my video has been off, just so that we are not spending more time than we need to, and while you can get back to your day. And then we would address all the questions at the end of the sessions. So back to our programming. The first presentation we'll be having is about our learning lab innovation. TaRL is very big on learning and trying out new methodologies, improving our methodology, trying out new concepts, learning from them, and then implementing them in several other states and several other local governments in the states we work in. So one methodology we worked on and we learned was called the Learning Lab Innovation. And to speak more on this would be Afiz Odewale, who is going to be sharing insights from the Learning Lab in Kebbi State, which is an initiative that was tested how deeper teacher training and continuous mentoring can boost foundational learning outcomes. So while Afiz is getting ready, let's prepare to learn how this methodology has been tested and tried in Kebbi State and is currently improving learning outcomes. So we keep on saying that, oh, teacher this, teacher that. I'm not going to say what we say, but we are working tirelessly to ensure that the teachers that we're working with are equipped and they are trained, because training, you can't say that people that have not trained are not working. So we ensure that we're training them through our learning lab. So Afiz, please unmute yourself while I pull out your presentation, and let us all welcome him to have this conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you everyone. And I'm glad to share with you findings from the Learning Lab study, which was focused on improving teachers' capacity in order to enhance classroom delivery, quality classroom delivery in Kebbi State, Nigeria. So the goal of the lab was simple and but important. So we want to understand whether improve or additional training and mentoring can actually lead to improve teachers' delivery through TaRL in the classroom. So in this presentation, I'll be walking you through the background of the study, the model, our detailed plan, and the key results we observed. So background of the Learning Lab in Kebbi. One of the major problems we observed is low progression. So in TaRL Africa, we have 4 core domains, and assessment is one of the domains. So in our assessment, before implementation of TaRL, we conduct a baseline assessment. At the midpoint, we conduct a midline assessment. And at the end of the section, we conduct our endline assessment. So in 2021, 2022, we're able to notice that there is low progression in the percentage of learners who are moving between baseline to endline for learners that can read paragraph in Hausa. For example, in 2022, in one of our states of implementation, we observed just 14 percentage point improvements for learners that can read paragraph in Hausa. Likewise, for numeracy, we observe 13 percentage point improvement for learners who can solve 2x2 subtraction equation with carryover. In addition to this, we as well conducted competency-based tests for teachers. And this as well indicated that teachers have low competence in terms of, especially in FLN skills. Process monitoring data as well indicated to us that there is poor mastery of activities. So process monitoring, these are data being collected during implementation. So this as well indicated in 2022, we can see we have just 20% of these observations showing teachers actually have mastery of these activities. So looking at all these challenges, in light of this, we proposed a solution in order to address these challenges. So our proposed solution is to train teachers on FLN skills coupled with supportive monitoring and exercises. And our main learning question is, can building teachers FLN and TaRL skills help improve TaRL classroom delivery? Next slide. Next slide, Ife. So on the next slide, I will be taking us through the model. So we have additional 10 days training, which will be taking place from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on a daily basis. In addition to this, 8 weeks of supportive mentoring on FLN. So for this learning lab, we're able to reach 5 schools in 2 local governments of our implementation, reaching approximately 50 teachers, 2 MTs, master trainers, and 2 school supporting officers who are the mentors for this innovation. Addition to this, we have 2 field coordinators who are TaRL staffs that are as well supporting this innovation. So for school selection, we selected schools with low learning outcome that are of close proximity in order to ensure we reinforce monitoring and mentoring. And the implementation timeline, as you can see, we started this training in August 2023 up to December 2023, where we did disseminate the final the findings from this innovation. So looking at the detailed plan, so we have 10 days training, which is focused on FLN, and this covered Hausa literacy, English, and mathematics. So for this, we're able to learn through this training using pre and post tests. So in the English and Hausa, we covered punctuation marks, essay writing, sentence construction. And for the math side, we covered number recognition, place value, and operations. So this, like I said, this was as well followed by 8 weeks of implementation with supportive monitoring and mentoring from FCs and MTs and SSOs. We as well provided weekly worksheets to these teachers. So there is follow-up and mentoring that is going on. This weekly worksheet as well included numeracy, where we have number recognition to operations. On the literacy side, we covered grammar to essay writing. So this is as well to reinforce support for mentors. In addition to this, we have 6 reviews that is being conducted on weekly basis in the schools, whereby all these teachers that are trained, they come together in their school and they're able to discuss on what are the challenges they are facing and then areas of difficulties in the activities. So the weekly worksheet as well is being reviewed during this review meeting, areas whereby teachers have challenges are being addressed by mentors, which are the school supporting officer, the master trainer, and then the field coordinators. So in this phase, during the implementation, how do we measure the impact? So we conducted 2 focus group discussion during this time in order to understand, take up, and then the challenges faced. We as well have conducted classroom observations in order to actually monitor the teacher's delivery of the approach in the classroom. Lastly, the weekly assignment is being marked in order to see what are the areas whereby teachers actually need additional support. And lastly, we conducted, after these 8 weeks of implementation, we conducted another competency-based test, which we use in order to check what are the gains that teachers have actually made compared to what we have during the pre-test. Next slide. So in the next slide, I will be sharing with us, you can see this picture. This is a picture of our teachers during the training, and I will be sharing with us the findings from the lab. So our learning question, does the lab actually develop teacher self-reliance skills? We want to know whether teachers are able to read fluently in Hausa and English, comprehend tests through answering inference-based questions. Secondly, we want to see whether teachers are able to solve numeracy word problem, use place value, and solve operations. In the next slide, I'll be showing us the sample of our test tools or test sample. You can see we have our Hausa test sample, the English test sample, and then the mathematics test sample. So looking at the results, the key findings from this innovation. So for English and Hausa, we're able to notice 49 percentage point improvement in English for both gender. For mathematics, we're able to record 22 percentage point improvement for teachers and 35 percentage points for mentors. The pretest result for Hausa is actually high. I think that's why we have this small gain. Lastly, there is stronger gains in reading comprehension compared to essay writing. Next slide. For the math side, we're able to see a range between 42 percentage point improvement to 49 percentage point improvement in overall for both teachers and mentors. We as well noticed that male actually slightly performed more than female by 7 percentage points difference at the final assessment. We as well noticed that 41 teachers who actually solve at least one problem, which is compared to 20 at the pretest. And lastly, 32 teachers showed improvement in operation compared to just 7 during the pretest. Next slide. So we as well did analyze our results disaggregation by years of experience. See that teachers with NCE, National Certificate Examination, and teachers with degree actually performed better than others. We have as well have some teachers with SSCE, this particularly for English. As you can see, we have 19 teachers out of 28 showing above 50 percentage improvement, scoring above 50% at endline for English. More so, we noticed that teachers with less than 15 years of experience actually showed stronger improvements than teachers who have above 15 years of experience. We saw we recorded 35 percentage points improvement across subjects for this particular category of teachers. Next slide. So looking at our reflections, we made adjustments to some of our tools. Initially, we assessed teachers using OBJ comprehension questions. We recorded high performance here. So we later now shifted to written comprehension. And then furthermore, we translated our Hausa to from English to Hausa in order to ensure enhanced fidelity. Secondly, monitoring and review supported sustained improvements. During our FGD with teachers actually pointed this out, that the mentoring they received and during the review meetings or weekly review meetings actually helped them to sustain what they actually learned during the training. We as well note that there is need for stronger focus on essay writing and then complex math operations. And lastly, during our training, we as well engaged teachers with frequent quiz classwork. We noticed that this actually motivated our teachers to be attentive during the training. So looking at the conclusion, we're able to see that focus training, mentoring, and then the weekly assignments actually helped improve teachers' FLN and then classroom delivery. For mentoring and strengthening support for complex skills. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you so much, Afiz. That was very interesting to learn. All the data about the teachers that have gotten the percentage increase, the number of years, knowing that, okay, teachers that have less years, less than 15 years, right?
Yes.
Showed more progression than the ones more than 15 years. We still need to do more work to find out why that is, because I know a lot of senior citizens that know how to do things better, but we'll get to that later. But thank you so much for that feedback, and I'm sure so many people have interesting questions to ask. So just go to the Q&A session. Remember what we said in the beginning. Q&A session, it's where you see participants chat, raise hand, share. You will see Q&A. Click on it, put in all your questions, and we'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. We don't want to spend so much time answering questions in between sessions, so that we have enough time to cover everything we need to cover. So thank you so much. It's very interesting how the Learning Lab shows the power of practical field-tested support for teachers. And it's interesting to see that if you provide support for teachers, they will provide value to our children, and our children will learn. And that's all we are after, ensuring that our children learn. In order not to waste so much time, up next, we would have a presentation by Hajia Aisha. Beautiful smile. She's a regional program manager based in Kaduna State. She'll be talking about Check for Understanding, which is a tool, a low-cost strategy that allows teachers to track students' learning in real time and adjust instructions without waiting for major assessment. So rather than waiting for the testing period or the exams that children take, you do your assessment in between school sessions and ensure that the children are learning. And if they're not learning, the tool, the assessment will help you adjust your instructional material so that they are learning in real time. So this is actually going to be very interesting. So stay tuned, and over to Hajia Aisha Umar Adamu. Over to you, Aisha.
Thank you very much, Ife. I would like to ask us to share from my side. Okay. Thank you.
Are you able to share now?
Hello, everyone from all over the world. We're very happy to have you here. My name, like my colleague has said, my name is Aisha Umar Adamu, and I am resident in Kaduna State, working for TaRL Africa. I'm very excited to share with you something that we tested in Kaduna State, which we have coined Check for Understanding sometime last year. Before I move on, I know that we may have some new people that are probably coming in contact with TaRL is, so that as I proceed with my presentation, you'll be able to connect the dots. Basically, TaRL is teaching at the right level. Basically, we have 5 different buckets that we use to say this is where TaRL differs. And one of our goals, one of our difference where we differ with conventional learning is that we do not really emphasize, we're not curriculum based. Rather, we are more targeted at ensuring that all children that go through our program acquire the basic foundational literacy and numeracy skills, as against what is obtainable where a teacher is meant to complete a curriculum or a textbook at the end of a term. Another bucket where we differ is our training and mentoring structure, whereas other conventional programs may want to leverage on resource persons as trainers and then follow up from time to time. We actually embed our training and mentoring system process into the government systems, where we have leaders of practice that provide real support, and they also improve their own capacity by doing so. Most of all of our mentors are also implementers, and they practice the TaRL methodology. We also are very heavy on grouping learners, and because that's where the teaching at the right level comes into play, we group learners and teach them according to their learning ability. Of course, conventional classes, we teach learners according to their class. So if you're in grade 5, you're going to learn the same thing, or across board. However, we use grouping, and grouping is putting learners in the same group, learners that can identify, learners that can do operations different. We have different levels which we have used to differentiate learning abilities for children. So children learn according to their learning level. That is one thing. And in this grouping, we usually move them from one level to the other. So if you are in one level, does not mean that throughout the program you will remain in one level. You would move according to your own ability. Of course, we use simple activities that are hands-on, and we do not really rely heavily on chalk and talk. And another key aspect of TaRL is our assessment and measurement, because we are you have to know the learning ability. You have to have data to be able to say you're teaching at the right level. So our assessment is one-on-one, as against the conventional where children, do assessments all together, standardized tests. Every child is assessed in the same manner at the same time. This is a simple one-on-one that is being administered by the facilitator or trainer or teacher. I beg your pardon. Just this is high level about how TaRL differs from, other conventional methodology. So a simple rundown of what happens in a TaRL class. A TaRL class typically begins with an assessment, a baseline assessment, where all learners go through that process so that they are able to, the teacher is able to understand what is the child's learning level. After the simple one-on-one assessment is done, teachers are asked to, group learners according to their learning level, so that he's able to identify learners at their different competencies, and then develop a session plan or a teaching a session plan that highlights what activities will be done for what category of learners. Then in the class, children are progressed to other levels, and then receive instruction, and it comes back again to an assessment cycle. So assessment, they receive instructions in their group, and then they move to the next level. You can see where it has been highlighted in red that even during classroom implementation, children should progress and move into next level without waiting for a formal assessment. So we have the 3 assessments my colleague Afiz mentioned. The 3 formal assessments we have are the baseline, the midline, and the end line. So typically, in a TaRL program, we expect that at the beginning of the program, there's a baseline assessment that is being conducted, and the teacher uses that assessment results to, group learners according to their level. You can see an illustration of typically what you would see in a TaRL class at baseline. We would typically see more children at the lower level than at the higher level. The higher level will be referring to like paragraph and story. The lower levels referring to children that cannot identify alphabets, and then those that can identify alphabets. And after some time of receiving instruction, we expect that at midline, another assessment will be done, typically around 40 hours prior to after the commencement of baseline. Children will be assessed again by the facilitator, still a one-on-one assessment, and then that result is used to also regroup learners according to their new competency level. Of course, knowing that they would have received some amount of instruction and have acquired some skills which they didn't have at baseline. So again, instruction continues till end line. End line, probably approximately 30 hours after midline, we also advise that an end line assessment is done to know what are the learning gains for the whole cycle. So at end line, the teacher will also use it to look at what are the learning gains that he or she has achieved in her class or in his class. And that is just an illustration of showing how the progression of grouping takes place in a typical cycle for TaRL. However, as implementers, there are a lot of things that we know and we understand and have observed. One of the things we've observed is that children actually have the capacity to, move quickly from one level to the other, especially children that are at the higher level. So children that have acquired some skills, it's easy for them to move. Remember in the previous slide, I said that a baseline assessment happens, and typically after 40 hours of implementation, another midline assessment happens. But we know that 40 hours is a long time. Children can move quickly within that 40 hours from one level to the other. We can see a child that is unable to identify an alphabet from baseline to being able to read words or simple sentences before midline. So what happens? Do we now say that because we have assessment cycles and we have to wait till when it's time for midline to know what is the child's learning level? We strongly think that we should not wait, because don't forget that the core principles of TaRL is teaching at the right level. If we do not assess and know the child's level, waiting for another formal assessment, it will mean that we're not teaching that child at the right level. Another thing also as implementers that we've seen is that as time goes by and a teacher has his baseline assessment from the beginning, it's easy for a teacher to be able to, coordinate his activities to suit that assessment results. But as time goes by, children now start to move to other levels, and it becomes very complex for teachers and very difficult. Teachers have shown and have expressed that it becomes more difficult for them to develop session plans and, structure their classes in a way that they can effectively teach. So most times teachers depend on the data that they get at formal assessments, either at baseline or at midline. They keep referring to that assessment data to structure their classrooms. And so we know that, yes, actually, teachers do need support in a way that will help them to really target learners appropriately and according to their learning level. For an organization, we've tried a lot, like my colleague Ife said, we're an organization that is very heavy on learning. We know that implementation of such programs needs to be adapted as things unfold in the field. So we've tried to strengthen our training model to see how we're able to, include this kind of components into our training, that teachers are able to, adapt fluidly to new learning levels in the class as children acquire certain competencies. We've even gone to the extent of sharing guides with teachers and showing them, like, this is a guide, this is how you assess, this is how you integrate new learners when they move from one level to the other. These are the things you need to do to integrate them into their new learning level. And we've also, really been heavy and very, encouraging teachers that they need to understand what is the core principle behind the TaRL methodology, which is simple: to teach each child at his or her own level. So we've tried all these things. But of course, the challenge still persists. When we conduct our process monitoring for TaRL classes that are implemented across the states we support, we observe that about 8 to 10 classes are not progressing learners in between assessment cycles. That means that a learner will keep receiving the same instruction from baseline until midline when that learner is assessed. Then the learner is now regrouped. And we know that that does not really speak to the principles of TaRL. So we realized that we needed to be we needed to take drastic actions and really come up with a process and a tool that will really nudge teachers to push learners and progress them to new levels, and also to amplify, let it be in the faces of teachers, that the key principle is that children need to be progressed as they learn, and then grouping, and then they should receive instructions that are targeted to their learning level. And so after a lot of deliberations and modeling, we came up with this innovation to say, let us try Check for Understanding in Kaduna State and see if we come up with a process and a model that really nudges teachers to do these assessments, will it have any impact? And so the Check for Understanding was, born in TaRL Africa and tried out in Kaduna. Basically, when we tried the Check for Understanding innovation, we had a process cycle that we wanted to adhere to. We would start with a big bi-weekly class assessment. So that is the starting point to know the level of the class implementation. We'll start with instructions for 2 weeks, depending on, of course, the formal assessment that was gotten. In this case, which is the midline assessment, as the innovation started after midline assessment. So teachers used the midline assessment to group learners and then had contact hours for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we decided to single out a day, which will not be a day of learning, but a day of assessment. And all learners were assessed to see if there was any progression. The teacher will now calculate the number of learners that had progressed and come up with a summary sheet for his or her class and submit it to the head teacher. Also, the teacher will now use that new data that he or she has acquired during the Check for Understanding activity and regroup learners according to these new levels that they have attained. And the teacher will design a new session plan using this data that has been gathered. And the cycle goes on. We had Check for Understanding at different points. About 8 Check for Understanding activities were done during the cycle. We also decided to develop tools that specifically focus Check for Understanding. We developed a manual that highlights the different activities that could be used to check for a learner's understanding. So we're not using our regular ASA tool that are used during the formal assessments. They were simple activities that we identified which teachers could leverage, simple and quick activities teachers could leverage to just check if a child had attained certain learning abilities. And also we decided to say, let us track this progression and see if progression is happening. And so we had a recording sheet which teachers used to compile the number of learners that had progressed bi-weekly. And there were also data collection, classroom observation to see the Check for Understanding, what is happening, is there more interaction, is there more engagement and all that. So there was data collection through classroom observation that was done, either through hard copy or soft copy of forms were submitted. Like I mentioned earlier, the innovation was tried out in Kaduna State, specifically Kaduna South local government area between February and July of last year. And we decided to use the approach of difference in differences to check, meaning that there were 10 schools, 5 of them were treatment schools, which we administered the treatment of Check for Understanding. And then there were 5 schools which were just doing the regular thing that used to happen without the Check for Understanding activities really being amplified in those schools. And we also started by training all teachers in 10 schools to ensure that we minimized bias, that all teachers had the same level of understanding in regarding the TaRL activities. At the end of during the innovation, we had decided quickly that we wanted to learn 3 things, just 3 things we wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on what is the most effective and feasible design for Check for Understanding, what is effective and what is feasible. We also wanted to check what are the things that are making teachers not to, conduct Check for Understanding, what will push teachers, as I said, wanted to nudge teachers, and what are the things that were discouraging teachers and inhibiting them from conducting the Check for Understanding and using data to, develop their session plans. Lastly, we wanted to understand, is there any potential that Check for Understanding, when it's conducted, it will have an impact or it will affect learning outcomes So wanted, because that was our assumption that yes, it should, but wanted to learn, would it really improve learning outcomes? With these 3 questions in mind, we decided to implement the check for understanding over those months with points for collecting data. We were very happy to see that our assumption was proven to be right. By the time we started the innovation in the different treatment schools, this is just a snapshot of how progression happened in the schools that implemented check for understanding. Just quickly, let me show some differences. Like, for example, in this level, we saw that at the beginner level, we had children at midline. I had mentioned that the innovation started after the midline assessment. We had 14% of the learners at beginner level. At endline, that is after 6 check for understanding activities, those learners reduced to 6%. Those learners that were only able to identify letters, at the beginning, they were 35% of the total learners in the program, but at the end of the innovation, they had reduced to 20%. We also saw that learners that could read words were 17% at the beginning of the innovation, but at the end line, they had increased to 22%. Likewise, those that were able to read sentences were only 11%, and they had increased to 30% at the end line. In paragraph, though, we had a slight reduction of 22%, which we tracked to, and we are attributing that to cases of absenteeism. But still, this is quite an impressive, to us, it was very encouraging because it shows that when learners are actually progressed to their level and administered instruction according to their learning level, it again reemphasized that teaching at the right level does improve learning outcome. So that the previous slide was for English, and this is for numeracy. Again, we're seeing the same pattern of children reducing at the lower level and then increasing at the higher level, just like we had said, I had mentioned in the previous slide. Just one case, one line here I will take, like for example, at the midline, that was the beginning of the innovation. We had 31% of the learners at subtraction level. That means they were able to do subtraction, 2 by 2, subtraction with remainder or with carryover. But by end line, they had increased, those that could do it had increased to 44%. Those that were able to do division also were 5%, but at end line, they had increased to 90%. And this was quite encouraging to us that yes, when teachers do progress learners, it has an impact on learning outcomes. Then you remember I mentioned that our study utilized the difference in differences. And so we had to compare to really make our assumption complete. What's the difference in learning outcome for the treatment schools versus the control schools? And by midline, the treatment schools had improved learning outcomes in English by 17 percentage point improvement at the higher level. They've also reduced those that were, at the lower level by 23%. However, that is for the treatment schools. Now let's compare to the control schools. There was just a 1 percentage point improvement versus the 17 percentage point improvement for the treatment schools for language. Also at the lower level, there was just an 8 percentage point reduction at the control school, while the treatment schools recorded 23 percentage points reduction in literacy. We also tried to compare for numeracy if there was any difference. And yes, we did see that there was a difference in the treatment schools versus the comparison schools. At the higher level for treatment schools, it was recorded about 17 percentage points improvement of learners that were now able to do operations in numeracy, while there was really no improvement, percentage point improvement for the control schools. At the lower level, there was a 6 percentage point reduction for the control treatment schools versus 1 percentage point reduction for the control schools. And with that, the data showed that, yes, the quantitative data we had showed us that, yes, indeed, the CFU is a viable tool that we should, embed into our model. And then we decided to talk to the implementation teams, and I will just share a few insights from what they said. They've said that, yes, they found that the CFU was very meaningful and it improved that's teachers now. They said they found CFU very meaningful to their teaching, and it even improved their engagement with their students. They were able to engage more meaningfully with their students. And of course, that's because they were doing the right activities, and, you know, conducting those activities, the CFU activities, made them know the learners on a case-by-case basis. About 98% of the teachers actually said, yes, CFU activities are very appropriate and the data entry was manageable. 100% of them also accurately mapped progression levels. So when we did the verification to see, were you really progressing learners accordingly, or, you know, just to verify, it was 100% accuracy that we saw on the field. However, there were challenges that emerged because some of the schools did not have teachers that were trained on TaRL. So we saw those challenges come through. Also, we also saw that there was opportunity, like I said, 93% of them said, of teachers that were interviewed said it improved engagement of students. So students were more engaged. Of course, they were more engaged because they were now receiving instructions that were appropriate to their learning levels, and they were learning. They didn't get bored. So 93% of the teachers said, yes, there was more engagement from the teachers. Half of the teachers, that's like 50%, said that the use of the CFU data also helped them and it enhanced their session planning. So they could see that their session plan was richer and more effective. They also said that, however, 4% of them felt that the CFU did not improve their comprehension of delivering targeted instructions. So there's 4% that is still struggling with understanding how to really teach at the right level to target instructions according to learning levels. This were the feedback we got from the teachers. We also saw that there was a bit of concern with the structure or the process of doing the check for understanding activities, as well as the data collection tools. For example, I had mentioned earlier that bi-weekly, we used 1 day to do check for understanding. But we know that in Nigeria, we have classes that are very high in PTR. Some classes are as high as over 100 to a teacher, or over 100 and something to a teacher. So because of high PTR, it was really exhausting and time consuming for teachers to, you know, conduct these individual activities for each learner in their class. And sometimes it would spill over 2 hours. Some teachers also complained of the data collection tools, where I told you that we're recording those that had progressed. They said the fonts were too small, they wanted bigger sizes, and it should be the paper that we used should be bigger. Some of them had challenges to really read what was on the data collection tool. These were some of the feedback we got from them. Also, another positive feedback was that due to check for understanding, there was a lot of schools that conducted in the 2 of the schools particularly stand out. They conducted refresher trainings to, you know, improve their own capacity due to the data that they were now seeing. Teachers were able to compare learners that were progressing in each other's class, and now leverage on, if you had more learners that had progressed bi-weekly, naturally you would, you know, support your peers to understand what are you doing in your class differently, how are your learners progressing. So we saw that peer learning really take place, and teachers really conducting refresher trainings by themselves and prompting themselves to, you know, have these engagements. The refresher trainings became more frequent and of course richer. So at the end of our innovation, we saw our learning questions were, you know, justified. There was improvement in learning outcome, and we had a feasible model that we could scale because we had recorded our lessons learned. So going forward, we decided to, you know, use the feedback from the teachers to, you know, improve and enhance the check for understanding model. We reviewed the data collection tool. We simplified it to the barest minimum. In fact, we just said, go ahead and use your regular progression sheet without using the cumbersome one. Just mark it simply. These are the learners that have moved from one class to the other. In fact, we even encourage, if you can use a textbook, just do it. It shouldn't be a cumbersome process. We also changed the process of conducting the CFU because 2 hours was not sufficient for a lot of teachers, considering the high PTR. So what we encouraged was for teachers to first of all observe those learners that have shown, you know, competency in acquiring the skills, and then mark them and assess only those learners, so that you're not assessing all the learners in your class. Also leveraging on peer team leaders, because teachers will appoint group leaders from the students, to also ask the group leaders, do you think there's anybody in your group that has understood what we did last week? Or is there anybody that is still struggling? So teachers were also advised to include those processes. Lastly, we also said learners should take their learning in their hands. A learner should be able to walk up to a teacher and say, teacher, I understand this activity. I'm able to do that. So these 3 simple steps would definitely reduce the turnaround time for conducting the check for understanding activity. And because we saw the benefit of this process, we as an organization, and of course with our different partners in the states, decided to scale up this, embed it, and really amplify it during our training, that all TaRL programs should have these components embedded into the training model. As I end, I just wanted to highlight something that came to mind as we're preparing for this webinar, that definitely, whether it's in a TaRL program or not in a TaRL program, we know that periodic checking of learners' understanding is essential to ensuring that they are truly grasping the concepts being taught. We also know that checking for understanding allows teachers to identify gaps early, adjust instructions accordingly, and provide timely support, ensuring that no learner is left behind in their learning journey. With that, I come to the end of sharing this very beautiful innovation that was done, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Aisha Adamu, for that amazing presentation and check for understanding. So that was a lot, and I'm sure we have learned so much. So thank you so much for running us through. So we are running with time, so I will just move to the next. I'll move to the next session. So Philip, please go ahead. So we have a panel conversation. So I would pass the mic over to Philip, who is the Associate Regional Program Manager in Kano State, and he would be moderating the panel session. So Philip, please go ahead with the next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ife. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are watching us from all over the world. The topic for this panel discussion is innovations and impact in practice. The learning crisis in Nigeria remains one of the most urgent educational challenges, especially for children in early grades. Despite higher enrollment rates, far too many children remain unable to read or do basic arithmetic. This panel explores how teaching at the right level is driving scalable change through government commitment, robust measurement systems, and field-based innovations. Panelists today will share insights from their experiences implementing, supporting, and evaluating TaRL interventions, especially within low-resource and conflict-affected settings. As we reflect on this year's day of the theme of this year's Day of the African Child, planning and budgeting for children's rights, progress since 2010. This discussion will share practical lessons and innovations for making foundational learning a national priority. Here with me today on the panel, I have 3 people who will help us to do justice to some of the questions that we'll be asking. First among them is Alhaji Hassan Umar. Alhaji Hassan Umar is the board secretary, Kebbi State Subeb. I believe Alhaji Hassan Umar is here with us. You are welcome, Alhaji Hassan Umar. Next is also Malam Habib Saleh. Malam Habib Saleh is a development practitioner and was the former program manager for Kalma and Accelerated Learning in Kano. Kalma meaning Kano Literacy and Mathematics Accelerator. They are also going to be joined by one of us who had actually addressed us in this webinar, Afis Odewale, who is the Measurement, Monitoring, and Research Coordinator for TaRL Africa. Now, having introduced the panelists, I want to call our attention to the fact that Improving children's learning outcome calls for a battery of efforts, both from people in the field and from the administrators who are educational planners. And that is why we have brought in people who are implementing, as well as people who are decision or policy makers. I want to request the panelists to please be specific in their answers, as we have just about 20 minutes. You have 2 minutes to answer each of the questions that will be thrown to you. And we want you to keep to about 2 minutes in your responses. I'm going to start with Alhaji Hassan, the board secretary, Kebbi State SUBEB. I want to ask this general question, which all of you will have the opportunity, the three of you will have the opportunity to make comments on. What does success look like for foundational learning in Nigeria over the next 5 years? What does success look like in foundational learning in Nigeria over the next 5 years? Alhaji Hassan, I want to start with you.
Good day, everyone. For me, success in foundational learning in Nigeria means that every child acquire the essential skills of literacy, numeracy, and socio-emotional learning by the end of primary 3. I said primary 3 because we have two perspectives of learning, that learning to read, which starts from primary 1 to 3, and the reading to learn, which is supposed to start from primary 4 upwards. Therefore, by the end of primary 3, we expect every Nigerian to be able to acquire the essential skills of literacy, numeracy, and socio-emotional skills. Socio-emotional skills will help the learners to develop the needed emotional intelligence and the social skills that will help them to succeed in school, in work, and in their overall life. So to achieve this, I think for me, we have to consider the learning outcomes, the foundational learning outcomes.
Alhaji Umar.
Yeah.
Alhaji Umar, we will come to that. We want to have your idea of what success looks like. Thank you. Thank you for keeping strictly to the answer. Malam Habib, what is your opinion on this? What does success look like for foundational learning in Nigeria over the next 5 years? Do you have anything to add, Malam Habib?
Yes. So to me, I think Alhaji has gone down to the level of looking at the foundational skills improvement in children. But to me, I want to see an integration of TaRL into the formal education sector. Because currently, TaRL is being implemented like a dose given to children that have not improved. So I want to see by the next 5 years, TaRL has already been integrated into the formal education system. Currently, we have the ABEP curriculum, but I want to see how TaRL can also be integrated into the also I want to see TaRL becoming like a policy and becoming also one of the curriculum to be adopted in Nigeria. Okay, I want to see a clear policy framework, a coordinated financing and budgeting and planning for TaRL, and dedicated funding streams, whether it is federal, whether it is state or local government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Malam Habib. You have Alhaji Umar has addressed the output. You have addressed the input. So success is children after 3 years having foundational skills. And Malam Habib has told us that to make that happen, TaRL will be a veritable instrument in ensuring that happens. And by embedding the TaRL methodology into the national curriculum. Thank you. Hafiz, any thoughts? Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Philip. I think I will go in line with Malam Alhaji Habib and Alhaji Hassan. So I want to say at least over 70% of our learners are gaining foundational skills in the next 5 years. And the integration of TaRL into the national and then subnational system, whereby states take ownership of this program, and as well as sustaining the measurement and monitoring part of TaRL as well. I think with those components, we'll see more improvements in learning outcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hafiz. You have introduced another dimension of state ownership, which is very critical. And of course, typically measurement and monitoring. Thank you very much. My next question, and I want to start with Malam Habib. How can we ensure state and federal alignment in planning and financing these efforts? You have talked about integrating it.
Thank you, Philip. So I've said this earlier that we want to see a clear policy framework, both from the federal and also the state governments, because this is the only avenue that you can now implement TaRL without any hindrance or any hitches. Once the policy framework is available for the implementation of TaRL, that's fantastic. Then the coordinated efforts also. Currently, the federal, the states, the UBEC, Federal Ministry of Education, and the state SUBEBs are also implementing TaRL. And so I want to see a coordinated planning and budgeting so that funds are injected towards implementing TaRL. So, like I said, dedicated funding streams. So whether it is UBEC funding, whether it is, so now it is disjointed, but I want to see an integrated funding approach for the implementation of TaRL, not states funding it differently from their own maybe funding sources from UBEC. I want to see a kind of budget line embedded into TaRL implementation, just like it was done by the state policies towards other education programs. So this is actually the vision I want to see in the next 5 years for TaRL implementation in Nigeria. Thank you. And over.
Thank you very much, Malam Habib. That was helpful. Alhaji Hassan, Malam Habib has talked about policy formulation and coordinated funding stream. Are there other thoughts from you on how we can ensure alignment between the state and federal governments in planning and financing these changes that we have talked about? Malam Hassan. Alhaji Hassan. So,
yes, sir. I think for me, apart from apart from having a clear policy, framework that is explicit, it has stated the functions of all the federal, the states, UBEC, SUBEBs, LGS, etc. We also need to have a coordinated planning and accountability mechanism that will ensure that we leverage on the activities being done in order to ensure that there is success in what we do. We also need to ensure that we have a national foundational learning policy with clear targets, that will determine what is to be done and how it should be accessed. There also should be a joint consultative review meetings between states and the federal government to review what is done, what are the challenges, and how we can be able to share ideas to ensure that there is improvement in foundational learning in this country. Yes.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Hassan. You have made another critical point, which is your last point again, please. It skipped my mind. Your last point.
Yes, I said apart from ensuring that we have a clear policy, which is explicit with learning standard clearly spelled out, then we should also have a coordinated mechanism whereby we can track the progress of each child as far as learning, foundational learning is concerned.
Thank you, Alhaji Hassan. That was what I wanted, coordinated efforts. So we have to be deliberate. The change we look for will not just happen. We have to be deliberate, and the government will have to coordinate it, both between federal and state. I'm going to leave these background questions. I'm going to come to some specific questions, and I'm starting with you, Alhaji Umar. My first question to you is that what motivated Kebbi State in domestically funding TaRL, and what results have you seen so far? What motivated Kebbi State? Go ahead.
Yeah, in Kebbi State, we had a scenario. Kebbi State we have interventions from UNICEF where we do RANA, we do a spin model, literacy and numeracy, and for the early grade. So we had a situation whereby we have our early grade children being able to read because of these interventions, and the upper grade, primary 4 and 6, are not reading. So we were confronted with this challenge, and TaRL came in, which is a remediation program, and we quickly buy into the program, and we try to remediate the learning losses, because we understand that these children, because of poor teaching, they have lost the foundational literacy and numeracy, which will allow them to be able to read. So they have lost that foundation, and we need to remediate those losses. So we quickly buy into the TaRL methodology and adopt it to correct those anomalies that we have. And it succeeded very well, because what our teachers cannot do in 6 years, with TaRL methodology, they can do it in 3 terms. Just 3 terms. You see that a child who cannot read, who cannot comprehend a simple passage in 6 years, that child is now reading after 3 interventions, 3 terms intervention using TaRL methodology. So because of the efficacy of the methodology, we said we have to scale it off. So we started with 2 LGES, but we now scale it up to 6 LGES, so that we will ensure that we have remedied all the learning losses because of the teachers that we have who don't teach the way they're supposed to teach. So TaRL is a welcome development, and we want to envisage a situation whereby all schools in Kebbi State are using TaRL methodology to remedy some of the learning losses and to take care of learners that are found to be struggling in their schools with the use of the TaRL methodology.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Hassan. I'm particularly interested about what you mentioned, that as part of the results, what teachers could not achieve in 6 years are now being achieved over a course of 3 terms. And indeed, Kebbi is a model in TaRL implementation. We use Kebbi to canvas for other states. Thank you very much, Alhaji Hassan. My next question goes to Malam Habib. Having led the KAMA program, what stood out about TaRL's approach to improving basic education outcomes in Kano?
Yeah.
Malam
So,
Habib.
so what stood out in the implementation of TaRL in Kano State, I could say, is Kano has witnessed the advent of a learning innovation, which was then very new, through the TaRL approach. So it was during that implementation that teachers were given a kind of targeted training. So teachers were trained, unlike before, to target children at the lower level or at the higher levels of education. So if you look at the TaRL methodology, we have children at the beginner, letter, word, sentence, up to the story level. So teachers were given this kind of targeted training in both literacy and numeracy. That has stood out wonderfully in Kano. Teachers having been trained to target certain levels of children to make them improve. Then what stood out was also community engagement, the interest that parents showed when they see that their children are progressing because of the TaRL implementation. Remember, I've told you that teachers were given targeted training to target children at different levels. Then the issue of monitoring and evaluation, the process monitoring also. So teachers were just not left. The mentors were trained to follow them, mentor them, support them at the classroom, and also generate data that would now be presented to either the local education authorities or the state government to see how children are progressing. So that helps the government to take decisions, And then finally, TaRL has also aligned with the policy priorities of the state. Every time you meet the suburbs, their concern is how do we improve children's learning outcomes? So what stood out was how TaRL aligns with the state policy priorities and the education priorities of improving children's foundational learning. So these are some of the key things I could say about.
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Malam Habib. You have just explained the behind-the-scene actions that led to the improvement that Alhaji Hassan had talked about. Teacher achieving what they could not do in 6 years over a period of 3 terms. Thank you very much. Quickly, our time is running up. I'm already being alerted, but I'm going to go to Afis. My next question is to Afis, and it is, how is TaRL Africa using data and feedback loops to continuously improve learning outcomes? Afis.
Thank you so much. As you all know that data is one of the key things for us in TaRL Africa. We hardly make any decision without data. So data is very key. So for us in TaRL Africa, we've made data available at every stages of every level of implementation. At the school level, there is assessment data that teachers can actually use to group their learners, know the highest competency level of a particular child in their class, and they can be able to provide targeted instructions to these particular learners. We as well made this data available at the local government, which at this level, they are able to use this data to make decisions and allocate resources as well. Some of we collected assessment data. We have monitoring data as well, which includes section observation, like weekly review meetings that have been collected from schools. So these are as well used in order to check in the implementation fidelity, in order to make discussions with governments at that level. We as well have dashboard, which is more or less open to the international world. Anybody can actually go online and access our dashboard and be able to see our data. So at the state level as well, the state suburb, at the state ministry as well, they can as well access this data to actually see what is going on in school, and then they can actually plan their resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Afis. I would have loved to ask so many other questions, but we need to answer some of the questions that have been put on the question section. So at this point, I'm going to bring the panel discussion to an end. I want to thank you most sincerely, Alhaji Umar, Malam Hassan, Malam Habib, as well as Afis, for your insightful contributions. Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless you. So at this point, I will want to hand over to Ife. Ife, over to you.
Thank you so much, Oga Philip, for that amazing session. You moderated it so amazingly well, and thank you for all our amazing panelists for joining the session and sharing your insights, your valuable insights. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Gabriel Yakubu, who will take on the next session. Gabriel, please, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Ife. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you all the presenters for presenting wonderful and informative sessions. You've really brought the entire participants and all of us to a world of possibility in terms of handling, addressing the learning crisis we are having in our communities. So quickly, we are going to question and answers, and because of time, we will not be able to address so many questions as we have addressed a few of those questions already as they are being asked in the chat. So we will be looking at a few of those questions, and so we are going to be asking having some of the panelists. So the first question was addressed to Afis, who spoke on the learning labs. Thank you, Afis, for the presentation. Did you measure whether there was an improvement in learning outcomes for students taught by the teachers that received the training? So was this research related to children learning outcomes? That's what the participant would like to know. Yes, Afis.
Yeah, thank you so much. Even though that's the end goal of our training or the lab, so we as well but we didn't capitalize on that. However, we measured learners' learning outcome for those 5 schools, and we're able to record over 45 percentage point improvements across subjects for these learners. Yes, so we did that.
All right, thank you, Afis. The second question, so we are going to have only 2 questions here and then 2 questions in the next, for the next presenter. So did the Learning Lab assess whether learning levels of teachers' knowledge and skills during and following the intervention had a positive impact? I think this is the same question to the previous question, so I will go to the third question. My question is related to the methodology as the study is running pre and post test analysis. How does the study control the external variables like the shocks or other programs that could affect the outcome of this particular context? I think the participant is asking whether there were other programs.
Yeah, I get the question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for this question. This is very important. To safeguard and minimize external factors, as you can see during the presentation, this is just more or less a short innovation that was being conducted over a short period of time, and then in just 5 schools. So, and the local governments that we implemented this approach are just neighboring local governments. So it actually reduces the likelihood of exposure to other programs. And then more so, these teachers were given the same training, the same mentoring, the same tools, and then regular mentoring as well actually confirmed that there are no program parallel interventions that actually occurred during our study. So to reinforce that, we as well conducted focus group discussions, and feedback from those discussions actually indicated that there are no other programs that have been conducted during that time in those schools, and it has well confirmed that the observed improvement is actually linked to the training and then the mentoring provided during the intervention. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Afis. So the next question is addressed to Aisha for the check for understanding. Please, the hours between the line, I think baseline assessments are they hours of continuous learning time or hours of the normal day-to-day activities? I didn't really get the question. I don't know if you got the question, otherwise we go to the next question.
Thank you, Gabriel. My understanding of the question is the 40 hours, do they maybe like it was illustrated that after 40 hours of implementation, do the midline. So that is my understanding, that how do the 40 hours come about? We typically have 2 hours per day for each subject, 2 hours per day split between literacy and numeracy. So typically 40 hours would be 40 days. Let's say 40 days. So because each day you have 1 hour for each subject, each day 1 hour for each subject. So it will come to about 40 days. After 40 days of implementation, that's barely a little over a month, we do the midline. That's what it means. It's not, it doesn't run straight. It's cumulative. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. So the last question that we will be able to ask is, if curriculum is not used as the business as usual model, how then can a child progress to another level without learning all that his or her level should know? Does this mean That's the main plan for learning and teaching, for the beginners, later for all these levels, because in the village where we are at, I think the organization using using the TaRL approach without even knowing what we do is that. Did you also get this question?
Yes, I think I do. You know, in the introduction to TaRL, there was a slide where I tried to make a comparison about how TaRL differs from the business as usual. And definitely, even as TaRL Africa, our aim is to get children to go back into the curriculum. We do acknowledge that there's need to learn the curriculum. But what we have seen from our baseline assessments and our years of implementation and understanding of what happens in the classroom, we see that children are not even acquiring the skills that are, they're supposed to acquire in their curriculum. So the comparison was just to show that the aim is not to rush through the curriculum and say that we have ticked a box that, yes, we've completed the curriculum. Rather, the aim in TaRL is to ensure that children acquire these skills. So once they acquire the required skills, they are able to read and they're able to do basic operations. They naturally, the next step would be to integrate them back into the curriculum where they are learning. Just to add like an example, sometimes you go to the field and you see children writing exams, standardized exams from the curriculum, but they are not even able to read the questions. So these are the things that we're just trying to highlight, that before a child can really effectively benefit from a curriculum, some skills need to be prerequisites to even understanding the curriculum, and that's where TaRL comes in. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha. So please, you will permit us, because of time, because we are out of time, to end the question and answer session at this point. And then we will want to receive feedback. So Ife, can we share the Menti again? So please, we are going back to the menti.com again, and then we want to receive a quick feedback in the next 2 minutes, and we will be done with this webinar. So we go back again to www.menti.com.
And use the same code,
same code, and the code is many we are not here at that time.
Okay, and so 5756. I'll type it in the chat. 57565353. I'll type it in the chat.
It's already on the chat. Thank you. So please refer to the chat. It's there on the chat. 5756 3533. All right, so we have the first question here, and it's asking us to reflect on today's webinar. What was the most significant takeaway or insight regarding TaRL in Nigeria? If you have been able to access the menti.com, we will appreciate to have your feedback, please. Do well not to drop. Give us your feedback. It's very essential to this webinar. We will really, really be glad to have your feedbacks. Thank you. Yeah. So we have just a few questions. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. The feedback is already coming. Yes, keep going. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Aisha's presentation on check-in learning was powerful. It's a very involved hands-on approach. Flexibility and scalability, the significant efforts of TaRL in building children. Thank you. Ife, can we go to the next question? All right, so do you have any suggestions for future webinar topics? Okay, let the feedback keep coming. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, thank you, let them keep coming. Yes, thank you for your responses. Let them keep coming. Yes, Ife, now can you give us the last question? Thank you. So will you like to attend more such webinars? Please, if it was a waste of your time, feel free to say no or maybe, but if it's worth our while, then we appreciate our feedback, however it comes. Yeah. Keep coming, keep coming. Only 15 people have responded. Keep coming. Okay, thank you, Ife. Thank you. I will like to hand over back to you now. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. That was an amazing question and answer session and an amazing Menti session also. So I'll just leave that Menti page so everyone can vote and everything. So thank you again. So as we wrap up, I'd like to thank all our speakers, our all the presentations that were taken, our amazing panelists, and all of you participants for staying. We still have 100 people, even though we've used more than our time. So I would like to give a round of applause. I'm going to just share a round of applause in virtually. So I'd like to say thank you very much. This session has highlighted the real potential of the TaRL approach to make a difference in the classroom, as we can all see. And we hope that as you leave this webinar today, you have left with renewed energy to advocate, to plan and act for foundational learning, because every child deserves the chance to learn at the right level. Please feel free to reach out to us. Well, tarlafrica.org. Please, Arlene, please put the website on the chat and all our social media pages so that people can reach out to us. You can reach out to us for more resources, partnership opportunities. We're always looking for how to get to the grassroots to ensure that every child, we're not leaving any child behind. And then until next time, we would like to say thank you so much and have a lovely rest of the day. We are also going to play a video. So if you still have some time that you can spare us, you can stay behind and watch a video on a boot camp we recently had, just to share more about us and what we do. So Arlene, over to you, and a round of applause to everybody that has stayed so far, listened to us, asked questions, contributed, and just encouraged us. I've also seen some encouragements in the question where they've said, oh, this is a great methodology. Thank you so much for that. We are really grateful. Thank you and God bless you. Arlene, over to you with the video. And CD also is also saying thank you all for joining. So thank you, Ma, for that comment. God bless you all.
4 plus 1, 5. Very good. Zamaina sawa.
Early in the morning, we start our TaRL program with numeracy, starting from 7 to 8 in the morning. Then the normal school resumes at 8. Then in the evening, we usually have our literacy session, starting at 2:30 to 3:30.
My school is very beautiful and it has many activities that we do that helps me to succeed in my life.
2 minus 1. 1, good.
I love mathematics, so I would like to be an engineer. I love number wheel. We draw a circle and draw the ones, tens and hundreds, and then we took 4 stones and then we throw them. If one stone gets to the 100, it is 100.
In TaRL classes, I like mathematics of addition of plain money. Plain money, we had some papers looks like money, and then you get the answer.
Tens.
Addition can make my brain bright because when I do addition, I know how to add things.
We've talked to the administration in the 5 schools that we are in Kitui, where we implement this program. The children are taught during school hours, and we're able to have activities that are learner-centered. They're very fun-based in comparison to the activities in the remedial TaRL program. So we focus on social-emotional learning, we focus on gross motor skills as well as fine motor skills, as well as introducing the skills of reading and writing and numeracy skills. So the teachers themselves are in the classroom and they're able to follow up on the activities that we are doing.
5 plus 5. Janet. 10. 10 plus 6.
Learners are able to learn reading skills and numeracy quickly as compared to the other classroom activities that they do. Next is that learners are able to interact with confidence, and also the other thing is that learners are gaining leadership skills.
We are trying to ensure that each and every learner has an opportunity to be able to at least read, at least do basic operations, which are the foundations towards when it comes to higher levels of learning.
Question is, how many liters?
I was so excited to learn how we actually design the activities for the learners and how we can actually see and measure progression from the time that the learner started midline as well as endline.
I really liked the way the teacher introduced the class by doing the oral addition, how he interacted with the students and also the group leaders. They really knew what they are supposed to do. So when we go back to our organizations, we'll be able to do the same things that these schools are doing, because we find that I was struggling with how to come up with a lesson plan. But from this boot camp, I'm now confident and I now know what I'm supposed to do.